All right, so we are continuing with subtracting fractions with unlike denominators, and we'll just jump right into it with our warm-up. If you're in class today, we went over some warm-ups with just finding equivalent fractions. We did that right before our lesson, so we'll skip past those to the actual lesson warm-up. But more equivalent fractions. Use fraction circles to show 2/5 and 1/2 as equivalent fractions with a common denominator. We don't have to really do that. Um, what they're basically asking us to do is what we've been doing all along is we want to find a common denominator between 5 and 2. So over here, let's do this. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. And for this, we have 5 and 10. So we know right away there's that. And we could do what we call the easiest common denominator, which is take those two numbers, 2 and 5. And that would have given us 10. Now that always will work. It may not always be the least or the lowest common denominator, but it does happen to work out that way this time. So for 2/5 and 1/2, we need to figure out how to make an equivalent fraction. So times 2, that gives me 4/10, and this gives me 5/10. So again, it's very important with adding and subtracting fractions is to find the equivalent fractions by basically changing that bottom number so it's the same for both. And that's what we did there. All right, go ahead and turn to page 253. And this first one talks about Gavin has 2/3 pint of water left in his water bottle. He drinks half a pint. How much water is left in the bottle now? With subtraction, we have to remember order does matter. So we're taking 2/3 and we're subtracting 1/2 from it. But the first thing we have to do is look at our denominators and find a common denominator. So we got 2, 4, and 6, and then we have 3 and 6. And 6 is going to be our winner right there. For these, I just kind of split it up into two parts. So take our 2/3 and write these vertically. That usually helps us with subtraction. It spaces things out nicely. So we have to figure out how to change or make equivalent fractions based off this new common denominator. And this will give me 3/6. And that'll give me that. So it's 4/6 minus 3/6, which is 1/6 pint. Again, if you're watching the video from home, you can always pause. I usually go pretty quickly with the videos to get them done, but you're welcome to hit pause or rewind if you miss anything. Let's turn the page. So this talks about a couple different techniques that we could be using. One of them you could use for drawings and like breaking up your parts here. So like basically we have 1/3 and then we have half of the pint left. Now that's a possibility of finding a common denominator. You can also use a number line, but obviously we kind of want to stick to the standard way of doing it since that's just one technique's more viable. So they ask, why is 2/3 rewritten as 4/6 and why is 1/2 rewritten as 3/6? The main reason is thirds and halves are different size parts. That's why you have to create that common denominator because then all the parts will be the same. Then you can actually do the things you need to do with it. So 1/3 and 1/2 are just different sizes. Why are 6 chosen as a common denominator? Because 6 is a multiple of 2 and 3. Use 6 as a common denominator, write an equation to show the difference of 2/3 and 1/2. That's easy. We got 4/6 minus 3/6. And how much water is left in the bottle? 1/6 pint. Could you have subtracted with a different common denominator? We could have, but we're not going to get into that right now. So cross that out. Explain how to subtract two fractions with unlike denominators. We write the fractions as equivalent fractions with the same denominator. Run out of room there, but you get it. So we write the fractions as equivalent fractions with the same denominator. And this is an E. Sorry, it's so sloppy. All right, turn the page. We've got 3 examples you want to do. You're going to skip 7, though. And let's go right on to 8. What is 7/8 minus 1/6? I'm splitting these 3 examples into a left side and a right side. The first one, we're going to take our denominators and find a common factor. 6, 12, 18, 24, and then 8, 16, 24. So we've got these right there. So let's take our 7/8 minus 1/6. Common denominator is 24. So we got 6 times 4, 1 times 4, that gives me 4. Got 8 times 3 and 7 times 3. This gives us a large numerator, 21. 21 minus 4 is 17. 24ths. Let's go on to the next one. So Emily's shelf is 3/4 foot wide. Her clock is 2/3 foot wide. How much wider is her shelf than her clock? So when we're trying to find the difference between two different numbers, that's subtraction. And this is a subtraction lesson, so that makes sense. But if you were just given the question cold, as in if you weren't sure which it was, you'd have to like look for keywords to let you know what to do. All right, so here's our factors. And obviously we've got 12. Here's our common denominator. So we've got 3/4, and we're subtracting 2/3. So let's take 4. All right, 3 times 3 is 9. 2 times 4 is 8. If we subtract 9/12 and 8/12, we get 1/12 foot is our answer. And just as an aside, 1/12 of a foot is actually 1 inch because there's 12 inches in 1 foot. So as a fun fact, let's put that as 1 inch. Okay. So basically the clock can fit on the shelf, but there's not much room for anything else up there. Number 10, what's the value of the expression 9/10 minus 3/5? Now for this one, 10 is a factor of 5, which means that is our common denominator. So remember, you can do a quick check. If the bigger number is a factor of the smaller, then that's the one you want. So 9/10 minus 3/5. If 10 is the common denominator, we don't change anything here. And for this, so 9/10 minus 6/10, that gives us 3/10 is our answer. Okay. There is IXL for today for your comment or for your work. So that will be look for L11, subtract fractions with unlike denominators. Obviously, for these, they're going to show them horizontally. You probably want to rewrite them vertically like we've been doing. So when you do that, just set them up. The first fraction go up top, the second one on the bottom, and then you should do fine with that. So you can go to 70 for to complete the assignment, 100% for a house point.